You know what Wednesday means? It's Wildcard Topic Wednesday, which is exciting because that means I don't know what we're going to talk about. You don't know what we're going to talk about, but we're about to find out together. I have just got to go over here and get the book that I'm going to flip from. I hope, yes, I have it. My suitcase, my rolling studio for when I'm on the road. I had a speech this morning, facilitation, and so I am in London for a quick visit, up and back. Sometimes I get calls from people saying, "Oh my gosh, you're in London and you didn't come see me." It's because when I come, it's like I'm so like I've got to do this and this and this and this and this, and then I'm on the road back home. So if I'm not seeing you physically, it's because my day is already spoken for. But I'll be back. All good. Anyway, let's figure out what we're going to talk about today. It'll be something in the genre of productivity and stressing less and doing more and being happier as a general rule. We're going to go to this page. Now, as long as we have not done this before. Yes. Okay. My favorite conversation, the thing that will completely give perspective to how you deal with all of the stuff in your life. And it is all around tasks, obstacles, and adversities. And specifically, this is around how they feed into each other. So that's our topic today. Now, why does this topic, why is it so important? Well, I think society has it wrong, right? Like we as a society bucket everything under the word stress. And it's like whenever something is happening, we call it stressful. And I have a couple beliefs around this. Number one, by calling everything stressful is, or bucketing it in under the stress bucket, it essentially is like it's a cop out. How do I say that? And the reason I say that is because if we call everything stress, then it's almost like disempowering ourselves to actually fix the things in our lives, right? Like stress is just the thing that we kind of accept as part of society. Oh, it's really highly stressful. I'm really going through a lot of stress right now. Well, really, what you're doing is you're going through life and you're reacting to life through a stress lens as opposed to, um, just kind of calling it life and dealing with what you have to deal with. But anyway, the other issue is that when we bucket everything under the word stress that we're dealing with, because this is all the stuff that's going on in our life, then we are unintentionally, I believe, implying that the same tools that will help us for one can help us for another. And the truth is, it's not the same. There's a huge spectrum of what's going on in our lives, what our stuff is. And when I talk about the capacity equation and the gap in our or the deficit in our capacity equation, that is like we got to look at what is our stuff compared to our capacity to do, to be, to feel, to think on a day-to-day basis. And that mismatch, that lack of balance within that capacity equation is one of the big issues why people are burning out at an alarming rate and why people are not wanting to work on their jobs anymore and just throwing up their hands and saying I'm out of here. And one way that we can change our relationship to all of that stuff is to categorize the stuff that is eating up our capacity into three different categories. Because when we do this, we can actually apply the right framework and path forward based on what category each of these stuffs are in. So, all that to say that there are three categories of stuff that could be stealing your capacity, and they are under the headings of tasks, obstacles, and adversities. Now, tasks are the things that we need to do. Obstacles are the issues that we need to solve. And adversities are the things that are completely out of our control. They're catastrophic external forces that will forever change the way we know our lives to be. The thing is that society has this reversed because we tend to glorify tasks. Oh my God, I'm so busy. and then minimize adversities, right? Like you're going through something really awful in your life and somebody asks you how you are and you're like, yeah, I'm fine. Well, you're not fine. You've just gone through a big divorce. You've just gone through a cancer diagnosis. Your best friend just lost their child. Like whatever the adversity, you're not fine, right? You well, eventually you may be, but I don't really believe in that whole time heals all wounds adage because it's like, well, it just makes it easier to deal with the suckage, right? That's the way I look at it anyway. So I think like when you do this, and I gotta tell you, like when people get this, like, and I've been talking about it for years. Some people hear it and they're like, "Oh yeah, 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 okay, I get it." But then there are people who get it, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So you look at everything that's causing you quote unquote stress, write it all out on paper. Then we say, are these things tasks, obstacles, or adversities? And then we look at our emotional discipline and we say, okay, tasks, if we put a lot of emotion into the tasks, we're actually going to do ourselves a disservice because tasks just need to get done. And when we add emotion onto them, so maybe bitterness, because like, why is somebody else not doing this? Why do I have to do it again? Or frustration or procrastination or worrying about tasks, we are allowing those tasks to steal more of our personal capacity each and every day unnecessarily. And what happens is we turn those tasks, i.e., I have a lot to do, I have a lot on my plate, and we intensify how those show up in our lives. Okay? So that's step 1. The tasks we just need to get done. And if we apply the problem, well, I don't want to get too far off track. Let's start there. Okay? So tasks. Great. Obstacles. Uh, oh, yes. Well, you're welcome, Greg. Thank you for saying that. This game changer today. It is a game changer. Like it was a game changer for me. And then I'm an N of one. But now I've seen this happen as I've been talking with people and like seeing how it can change somebody's life, right? Like it's like just awesome because it's all about the perspective, right? So we've got our tasks. We need to do those with as little fanfare as humanly possible. We just got to get them done. Obstacles, though, we need to solve. So we can't just do the obstacle. We need to have space to figure out what is the solution. Then, when I get the solution, those are going to be the tasks that need to be implemented. Okay. So the obstacles, the problem is that a lot of times our day-to-day tasks take up have so much fanfare around them, or we're not doing them as effectively and efficiently as they possibly can be done. And then we have these obstacles, but we're never actually solving for the obstacles because we're so busy doing the task that we don't have the bandwidth left over to get the objectivity to step back and actually look at what are the obstacles, how are we going to solve them, and what needs to happen in order to solve them. So with the obstacles, we also want to check in with our emotional investment into them, because some obstacles deserve our heart's explosion, and most obstacles do not. See, in business or in our professional lives especially, most obstacles are expected. So if you have clients, guaranteed at some point something is going to go wrong. Like that's how it works, right? Like we're not paid to not do anything. Like, it just is an expected part of business. And so if it weren't, then we'd just be robots and going back and forth. And there are always so many pieces of the puzzle. So how you respond in a time of an obstacle, we want to be sure that it has the appropriate amount of emotional contribution to it. Because if we're overreacting to obstacles, it makes it harder to solve them, to be objective, to be innovative, to be solution focused, etc. So this is this is a good comment. Okay, so this is important. Okay, so here's Greg's telling a story. The first time I told Allison I felt completely overwhelmed, she asked me what I thought the issue was. When I couldn't articulate it, she suggested I read the book and then try and answer it again. Take Back Your Weekends was like a work life purifier. Ooh, I love that. I love it because this is what I talk about in this book, right? It's like one of the foundational principles. And so I hope you're getting this because our tasks, a lot of times that's what's causing the stress. Like I had a poll that I just ran on LinkedIn. So if you want to answer it, please do. But I asked the question, what do you perceive as causing you the stress, anxiety, overwhelm at work? And I had four options. And one of them was too much to do. The other was frustrating colleagues. I think that was what it was, or frustration with leadership. And the last one was problems with clients. So, interestingly enough, so far, and I know these are not highly technical polls, I mean, they're on LinkedIn, but most people either said too much to do is causing me the stress, anxiety, overwhelm, or frustration with leadership. Okay. Frustration with leadership is an obstacle, not an adversity. Too much to do is a series of tasks that if we allow to have any control over our emotion, we are going to create another obstacle. It's like if I'm sitting here now and in the back of my mind I'm concerned about all the things that need to get done, then there's no way I can be totally in the present moment with you right now. But same way, if you are like taking a break and you're having a nice bubble bath and you're just like, I'm so exhausted, I just need self-care because it's self-care week and I'm going to have a nice little bubble bath, but you're actually thinking about the workload and the tasks that need to get done and the fact that you haven't finished the list, well, you're not going to be able to enjoy your bubble bath. That's the issue, right? Like our tasks should not be causing us stress. And if they are, then this model is hugely critical because it's going to open up your eyes to where am I allotting my emotional investment each and every day? How am I allowing my capacity to be stolen by tasks that need to get done? So as we go through this model, tasks, then we've got our obstacles. We need to have not taking up so much of our emotional capacity and our mental capacity on the task so that we have the bandwidth left over in order to actually process and figure out how to solve our obstacles. But then adversity is different. When you go through something that is so gut-wrenching that it changes how you perceive your life, maybe you've lost somebody, maybe somebody's gotten sick, you've gone through a divorce or a breakup, or somebody's betrayed you, we need to feel the feels. And so just as tasks can steal our capacity to have the ability to solve the obstacles, too many obstacles or too much emotional contribution to tasks can steal our bandwidth to heal from the adversities. We need to know, like, we have to have the space to be able to admit that we feel like a bag of whatever you want to insert word there, right? Like that. But the thing is that what happens to people, and I have this conversation so often, and by the way, I used to live it, is we're going through an adversity and then we turn to tasks to keep ourselves busy so that we don't have to feel all the feels that go with the adversity. Are you with me on this? It's if I stay busy, then I don't have to feel this thing that is gut-wrenching and awful and I need to heal from. But then what ends up happening is, and this is why so many people have conversations about, the hurt that they had in their childhood is because we just kind of glossed over it and didn't learn how to process it and deal with the traumas of childhood, which were just, in many cases, the normal part of growing up. And sometimes it was shittier than others, but, it's just part of it. And the thing is that now we're so busy, so we don't have to deal with that. But eventually those big things catch up with us. And somehow we have to have the space to process them. And the problem is people are so busy, and then that's when they burn out, because, and like there are many different reasons for burnout, but one of them is because we've got all this adversity stuff that isn't being processed and hasn't been healed, and all these emotions that are just stuck in us, and they gotta like have some space to move, and we got to give them that. We got to make the capacity to be able to do that. And so often people aren't doing it, and then they collapse. And when they collapse, that's when, so often you hit rock bottom and you just feel like numb, right? Anyway, I don't know if you can hear. I hope somebody needs to hear this today. I'm very passionate about this. All right, I'm going back over to the chat box. All right, I think we need to treat our capacity like a bank account balance, and tasks, challenges, and adversities like expenses. Yes, it's an equation, in and out, in and out. You need to be choosy with your budget and gain interest on the balance instead of being charged compound daily interest. Bingo. It's like, if you just think of it as like, you've got this limited capacity each and every day. How are you going to spend it? And so often, if you objectively look at that, the truth of the matter is that what's stealing your capacity, if you look 5 years down the road and like kept track, I'm going to suggest that most of us, I mean, until you've done the work at least, would potentially regret how we use that capacity if we knew that if we could allot it differently, if we could allot our day-to-day capacity to give us some room to feel the feels and to heal from the hardest things in our lives, if we could sit with the obstacles and have the objectivity and innovation and creativity to find the best solutions, and if all those tasks that are nagging us in the back of our head, we just actually did them. And if we didn't like doing them, we explored different ways to either delegate or delete, or to do them more efficiently and effectively so that we could get them off our list faster. Like, think about how your life would open up with that. Like, if all the tasks that were like dragging you down were no longer a part of your emotional daily capacity steal, like your use, if they were just things you did. Anyway, it's life changing, I tell you. Anyway, I just say this because I've seen it. I've seen how it can work. Okay, but here's the cool thing. It all feeds into each other. Because when you think about the sense of control, with adversities, nobody goes looking for them, but we find them eventually in our lives, right? Sometimes they're harder than others. It ebbs and flows, and we have very little control over how we react to an adversity. Everybody grieves differently. Everybody has a different intense emotion that can be with it. Like, that's just part of life. And so, but the empowering part of this process is that they all feed together. So when you think of an adversity, and I remember for my situation, when that like inspired all of this thinking is like, I had a surgery and I had neuropathic damage afterwards. And people say, well, what does that feel like? And the best way I can describe it is if you took a serrated edged knife and you stuck it into an open wound, actually an open wound that had just like had 24 hours to heal. Do you know what I mean? Like, where it's sort of like your body's relaxing and then it's just about healing. And then you took the knife, serrated edge, and you went into the wound. That's what it feels like to have neuropathic damage. And so what happened in my world is I knew that that knife took, let's say, 40% of my capacity off of the top of my day, right? And it was just like my body processing the pain and being able to function and all of that. Like, that was at least 40%, and probably in the worst times, probably 70% of my capacity for the day was spent dealing with the chronic neuropathic pain, okay, or the side effects of the medication, or. And so I had to figure out, how do I allot that other limited spot? So if you're going through something right now, if you're going through a divorce, if you are going through uh, like grieving somebody in your life, your capacity equation is different than the times when you're not going through an adversity. The adversity will automatically take a chunk out of your daily capacity. Like, and it's almost like we just think we're going to power through and get the work done when we're in the middle of one of those things. And it's like, yeah, but you're not dealing with the same level of capacity you were before the adversity took place. So they all feed into each other. And so what I figured out was, okay, the pain is my adversity. I can't change it. It was external. It was just something that, like, it's internal, but it was caused through a surgery. I can't change the past. I need to be able to live with this reality of what I have today. And I said, okay, if that's the case, then what are the obstacles that came out of the adversity? So for me, there were many things. I had limited hours to work, and I was like, okay, I basically have 2 to 5 hours of functionality a day where I can think and like be on. So I need to figure out, how do I run my company in 2 to 5 hours of functionality a day? And I got so good at prioritizing, and it honed in. It was like a good stress where I had to focus and be inspired to do as much as I humanly possibly could in that very limited time before I collapsed and had to deal with the pain again, right? Like, I was always dealing with the pain, but um, that I would like allow myself to just have my time off to recover so that I could go back at it again the next day. And so it was this lowest common denominator of the task. So adversities, right? And from adversities come new obstacles. And from new obstacles, the solutions come tasks. So if we use that model, the tasks, if we just do the tasks and we don't allow them to cause us unnecessary stress, if we're just getting them done without any fanfare around them, then we're going to increase our productivity, our outputs per hour, and then it becomes the snowball up the other way, right? Where if we get all our tasks done, then we have fewer obstacles to deal with, and then the obstacles, um, when we're dealing with the tasks as efficiently and effectively as possible, and we're solving the obstacles because we have the space to actually solve the obstacles instead of just putting band-aids all over them, then we have more freedom in our capacity over the course of the day to process and deal with the adversity. I know this may seem really deep, or it may just, like, I don't know. I think that when you get it, you get it. You get it. I just, I know. I know this is a lot. It's a whole framework. And I love it because I've had psychologists and psychiatrists, um, look at this model and go, oh, yeah, that's a really good point, right? Let's stop using the word stress to describe everything that we're dealing with in our lives. And instead, let's use um, this model to actually objectively look at how we're allotting our daily capacity to each of those three areas. So, anyway, that is my riff for today. That is the resilience reset. And I hope that you got something out of this. If you haven't read this book yet, I'm going to do a plug for my own book, but you know what? It's my show, so I get to do a plug for whatever I think is great. I did plug a lot of other people's books. I'm going to ask you to go and get this book and read it. It's super short, purposefully, and this is huge, a big model. Oh, Maya's got a comment here. She lost her grandma 2 weeks ago. It was the hardest thing I faced in my life. She was a source of love and support all my life. Wasn't that beautiful? I felt loneliness as if part of me is gone. My dad tried to hide his emotions and grief. He tried to hold on. Let me just look at it this way. Um, and grief, he tried to hold on, but I can feel his pain too. You know what? And here's the thing, Maya, like, especially, I don't know how old your dad is, but a lot of us were taught, um, Yeah, and I think this is changing. I think your generation, I know you've shared with us your age on the show before, so I don't mind saying that. Your generation is going to be so much more in touch with your feelings. You're going to have so much more permission to feel the feels and to get information like this. But most adult, like in their, I'm going to say above 30 or above 35, have not had that freedom or that training as we, grew up in our lives. Right? We were often taught, don't cry, don't show your emotion, suck it up, buttercup, like push through. And and so the problem with that is that it becomes, it takes an intuitive empathetic person to feel that from another person. But it's sometimes we just feel, especially when it comes to grief and loss, we feel that the pain is so overwhelming that if we sit long enough to feel it, that we're going to break. And the truth is, we're not going to break. It's going to suck. But the sooner we can go into the feeling, the faster the healing process can take. And so that is huge. But here's the thing. So you've lost your grandma who's really close in your life. And if you look at your daily capacity, that grief, that overwhelming grief that you speak of, is going to overshadow everything that's going in your life. It's going to take a part of your capacity. Now, you can still show up and do your work and your tasks, but this is why it's so critically important to have systems in place so that we are operating at a level that when something happens, our whole life doesn't get derailed. The business can keep moving forward because we can do that for those short little gasps of time. And yet we need to have the time left over to do the healing, but there's just no escaping it. So a virtual hug to you and your family. And I've been there. It's not easy, but good for you for leaning into the grief and really noticing it and feeling that. So thank you for sharing. Yeah. Okay. Well, I am going to sign off. I hope you got something out of that. Again, get the program, or well, the book, and then there's also an online program, by the way. But usually the book is the first place to start. And I hope that helps inspire you today. And I will see you tomorrow. Interesting about the books. So I was not going to do. You notice I didn't do a book review last week because I read a book that I don't like. And then I was like, you know what, Allison? By the way, my you're welcome. Yeah. Um, Thank you for sharing with all of us. So I read this book. I don't like it, but I'm still going to do a review. I'm going to push myself to do a review on it tomorrow because from everything we can learn, right? Every book we can learn something, and it might be really valuable to somebody else, even though it wasn't in line with what I need in my life. Anyway, so that's tomorrow. I won't even tell you what it is. I'll just surprise you. All right, until tomorrow, may you stress less, do more, and be happier. Bye for now.